With the ever-increasing oversaturation of formulaic franchise cinema in recent years, we've begun to see actors digitally resurrected to enable the posthumous reprisal of their fan-favourite roles from beyond the grave. We've now seen it with some of the biggest film series like Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Superman, and most recently and controversially, in Alien Romulus, where they brought back Sir Ian Holm for seemingly no good reason at all. Like, seriously, who was asking for this?
That's so sick.
Yeah, you don't say. So as you can probably tell, I have a lot of mixed feelings about these appearances, but predominantly negative ones, caused by the unignorable corporate greed, uncanny creepiness, and moral discomfort that is inducive to such examples of cinematic necromancy. So I figured I'd gather these thoughts for this quick video. Like and subscribe if you enjoy or whatever, and let's find out the point. So to kick off with, when it comes to any moral objections, I suppose it really depends on the context surrounding the actor being brought back to life on screen. For example, the least distasteful instances of this is where an actor unfortunately passes partway through the completion of a project they'd already contractually signed on to, and so their work is finished either digitally or through the use of deleted scenes and outtakes reformatted to make the best of a terrible yet unavoidable scenario when a tragedy like this occurs. That, of course, I have no qualms with, but the more problematic instances of cinematic necromancy are the ones that appear not out of a narrative necessity to complete an actor's tragically unfinished work, but simply because the technology now allows studios to do so, but just because you can does not mean that you should. This is where it becomes far more questionable concerning the intent of such appearances, because most of the time it can be argued that when they bring someone back it isn't really in service of a narrative, but so the audience can get that oh so commercially critical nostalgia-fueled dopamine hit when they get to say to themselves,
I know what that is!
I clapped when I saw it!
This is then exacerbated by the fact that the evident limits of the current technology reduces these exceedingly expensive appearances to brief, uncanny cameos. So any potential impact on a narrative is intrinsically reduced to not much more than recreating nostalgic iconography, while briefly flexing the impressive if frightening new digital sorcery. They refuse to let the dead rest, and that's all it's for. Who is arguing that this is worth it? It just comes across like a desperate attempt from studios to constantly remind audiences of what came before, at the behest of anything new, which of course is the other negative impact, where bringing an actor back takes away an opportunity from another, most likely far less rich and famous actor, who could have either taken over the mantle by playing the same character or bringing to life an entirely new one. Who knows, if you bother to make the new character interesting enough, you might create your next cash cow that you can rinse for eternal profits. Ultimately, no matter how lifelike and convincing these recreations will come to appear compared to the original actor, the unavoidable actuality that they can never overcome is that it is not the original actor on screen. The minor acting decisions, body movements, speech inflections, all the minuscule decisions that go into every performance will not be being made by that actor. It'll look like them, sure enough, but they will have played no part in that performance. I hope that by showing you these dystopian digital replicas throughout this video, you feel just as strangely uncomfortable as I do editing it. Because every single one of these CGI creations used to be a person that was alive, but sadly no longer is. And is that not just fundamentally creepy to you? Bringing people's likenesses back to life in this fashion has never been possible in human history, until we've been able to witness the advent of it. So it's no surprise that it instills an inherently uncomfortable feeling both morally and just instinctively. Especially while the technology still isn't quite perfect, our monkey brains are extremely good at knowing something's wrong, although a lot of the time it doesn't take much to tell that up to this point, most of these appearances look pretty rough. I suppose the biggest counterpoint to all of this is that signing your likeness away to these studios can secure further income for these actors' families after they're gone, and maybe even for generations afterwards.
Because look, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, and that's it. But my performances can go on and on and on and on and on. And outside of the understanding that it's been done with AI or deep fake, there'll be nothing to tell you that it's not me and me alone. And it's going to have some degree of lifelike quality. And that's certainly an artistic challenge, but it's also a legal one.
If it's they themselves that makes the call that they are happy to appear posthumously as a computer-generated creation, then sure, why not? It doesn't mean that studios should still bring them back without restraint, of course, but at least the issue is only more so of a narrative and filmmaking nature rather than as much of a moral one. But unfortunately, while most families will hopefully have a late actor's best interest to heart, families can be complicated, and you can't guarantee that being digitally resurrected is what the performer themselves might have wanted, especially for those who died long before such technology was even fathomable. And what about in 100 years' time, when those who actually knew the actor personally have passed as well? It's an entirely different group of people that will be making the decisions on their behalf, and probably an entirely different way that their likeness would be utilized. However, the even grimmer danger is when the families of the deceased actor don't get to have a say at all, like with Christopher Reeve, or the actor has no family to speak for them, like with George Reeves, both of whom controversially appeared in the disastrous Flash movie. Because the studio themselves owns their likeness so can reanimate an actor's corpse whenever they desire for their own financial gain. At the time of writing this, a brand new California bill literally just decreed that the consent of the families of the actor will now be required by law. And if rules like this become widely adopted globally, alongside the added protections achieved following the sag-aftra strike of last year, then at least it adds some further legal roadblocks before the gluttonous studios can resurrect whoever they please for whatever dreadful, lazy reboot they like. Ultimately, the reason I'm making this video is that it remains a very slippery slope, and we are really not too far away at all from the technology no longer being the biggest restriction to hold studios back. We've already seen a 20-minute long de-aged Indiana Jones action scene, and an extensive appearance from a young Luke Skywalker in a TV show. It's really not too challenging to imagine entire projects led by a deep-faked version of a now-past actor in the not-too-distant future. This is only going to get more and more prevalent. Therefore, more work will constantly need to be done to secure the protection that performers require from such ever-evolving technology, because the big studios in control of that technology will otherwise abuse and desecrate an actor's likeness whenever they can in an industry hell-bent on recycling old properties and recognizable imagery in the pitiful pursuit for hollow nostalgia. It's inevitable that this kind of thing will keep on happening, and to an ever-increasing degree. So it's something we're all gonna have to get used to throughout the world as a whole, not just with cinema, whether we like it or not. But for the films, characters, and actors that we hold dear, as long as it's done right, at least some of the moral issues can be rectified, and then at least it's only the abundant narrative and filmmaking concerns that remain. But in the nostalgia-fueled cesspit of contemporary Hollywood, it's not as though studios care about such unremunerative issues anyway.